Hello to everyone listening, watching, and above all to my sexy at 60 guests in front of me. Welcome to the show. I am Gula Cortis, founder of Gula Sorts It. My company provides operational business development and administration support for small to medium sized service based companies to help give back the gift of time and stop the business overwhelm. After a successful corporate career in retail and project management, I am now passionate about managing your back office so you can focus on what you do best. Welcome to my group of 6 sexy and at 60 ladies, each thriving, inspiring, and forever growing stronger and bolder. So, what is it all about? It started 6 months ago when I was talking to a friend about how I would like to celebrate my 60th birthday. The idea of a live recording and playing around with the number 6 came to mind. I soon started to reach out to find like-minded ladies around the age of 60. The next steps were the logistics, but another story for another day. What I like to achieve from the show is to share with you a diversity of stories that resonates and empowers women that we at the age of 60 are still thriving. The show Sexy at 60 represents 6 ladies speaking for 6 minutes each around 6 topics of life over 6 recorded sessions. In today's session, we will be covering the topic taking risks and personal growth. And in the following 5 sessions, we will cover overcoming challenges, work and contribution, health and body, being visible and heard, and the last session will be keeping the spirit young. So may I now introduce you to my first guest to share her story around our first topic, taking risks and personal growth. And I will share mine right at the end. My first guest is Sheila Massouz. Sheila is a chemotherapy nurse at one of the leading cancer treatment and research NHS trusts in the UK and a business coach in health and wellness. Sheila's strong desire to help and educate is what led Sheila to coach individuals in how to find balance at work, at home, and in relationships by actively promoting the use of natural products for your health and wellness. Please welcome Sheila.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gula, for that lovely, lovely introduction. And good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be part of this wonderful group. And thank you for today to give me an opportunity to air my views on taking risks and personal growth. So for me, just hearing the words taking risks just brings a lot of memories and a lot of mixed emotions, I have to say, because I've taken a lot of risks, some of them really big in my life over the years. And even now at 60, this year, I'm planning to take another big risk in my life. And also just talking to you ladies like this, for me, coming on here was a big risk. To be fair, I don't do this a lot, so I just didn't know whether I don't know whether it's going to work out or I'm just going to fall apart. But anyway, so just taking risks for me requires a lot of courage to face those risks that or to face the uncertainties that are associated with the risk that you're about to take. And that's exactly what it is. you don't know whether it's going to work out. You don't know whether you're going to fail, or whether it's, you just don't know. That's what taking risk is all about. And for me, each time I took a risk in my life, I just never knew whether it was going to pay off, or whether I was not going to succeed or succeed. Or I just don't know. But I have taken big risks in my life. And each time I have taken a risk, I have to say it has helped me to grow as a person, because for me, taking risks and personal growth, they just go hand in hand. And each time I've taken a risk, I've grown as a person. It's helped me, it's helped me to grow my confidence, and it also helped me to believe in myself as well. And also it has helped me financially. So I don't regret at all taking those risks that I've taken in my life. So I view taking risks as opportunities to learn new skills and to grow as a result. So I've taken a lot of risks in my life, bigger ones. I'll give you a few examples. Just becoming a nurse and a midwife in my early 20s was a big risk. Relocating from Zimbabwe to the UK 21 years ago was a very big risk. Educating our children, 2 children here in the UK privately, another big risk. Getting a mortgage in our 40s, another big risk. And just starting my small business. We started a small business 5 years ago. Not such a big risk, but nonetheless a risk as well. And I'm just about to take a very big risk. I'm going to retire in a few months. It's a time where where the economy is so unstable, and also I just don't know what life in retirement is going to look like, but I'm going to take that risk anyway. So taking you back to 21 years ago, I relocated from Zimbabwe. I left my husband and 2 young children. I just came here with a suitcase and 300 pounds in my purse. I was judged for it by people. I was told it's not going to work. I was told that they're not going to even let you into the UK. I was told that I was going to regret it because I was leaving my job. Nonetheless, I took that risk, because the reason why we did that was Zimbabwe at the time was everything was so unstable, the economy, the politics, everything. And we just wanted to give our children a chance to go further in their education. So we couldn't see a way of sending them to university if we stayed in Zimbabwe. So we took that big risk. For us, it was all about our children at the time. So I borrowed money. Well, we borrowed money, me and my husband, for me to come over here. And luckily for me, I knew one person who already lived in the UK and knew quite a bit about nursing opportunities in this country. So she took me in when I came in. She looked after me. She fed me, which was really, really helpful. What that meant was I needed to focus on doing whatever it took for me to succeed. And we needed to do it in a year, because I needed my family to join me. So what that meant is I had big goals back in 2001, I think, somewhere there. So I needed to save money to pay off my loan that I'd borrowed to come over here. I needed money to bring over my family. I needed money to get a 3-bed house and 3 months worth of rent for by the time they come here. I also needed money to start educating our children as soon as they came here, because we'd made a decision to educate them privately. Very big risk. And guess what? That all happened within a year. And you talk about taking risks. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Wow, that's an amazing story, Sheila. What a fantastic risk, and how you showed people that you did it. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it takes some courage and some hard work.
Definitely. Gosh, well done. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm going to now introduce you to my second guest. And we have Chris Diazio. Let me just read Chris's bio. So Chris is a special education coach for parents, caregivers, and teachers to support students with special education needs. With over 30 years of coaching experience, Chris specializes in working with challenged students aged 13 to 18 to help them overcome learning difficulties and have a successful education experience. Chris is passionate about inspiring and supporting her students to live a successful life without limits. The stage is yours, Chris.
Thank you, Guler. Thank you so much. And it's so great to be a part of this group. I'm really honored and very touched that you asked me and to be a part of these lovely ladies. It's a real privilege. So thank you for all the work that you've done in creating all of this. This is absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to go a little bit different direction. My two inspirations were my grandmothers, and they were the ultimate risk takers. So my paternal grandmother became a doctor. She was very good in the sciences. She was one of 6 children at the turn of the century, and she wanted to be a doctor. So she shared that with my great grandfather, and he said, "No, you can't do that." So she went ahead and did it anyway. Talk about risk. And when we think of medical school, we think of, laptops and study groups and libraries, and we think of all the things that you need in order to go to medical school. It was different back then. But what she shared with me is that often she would come home and study in her closet with a kerosene lamp. And that's how she got through. So when she graduated, she came home, shared with my great grandparents, "I'm a doctor now," and that was it. And she's in Who's Who in American history. So she's one of the first Italian women doctors in this country. And that was a huge inspiration. My maternal grandmother, different. She was one of 9 children, raised on a farm, and she got halfway through the start of high school. And then she went ahead and left to work in her brother's candy shop. So she went from small town rural to city risk at 14 years old. So I have 2 grandmothers who have done it differently, and they wound up being huge success and differently. But that really inspired me, and it kept me going through when I was struggling as a student and all of that. So one thing I notice in my field that I wanted to talk about, I can spend more than 6 minutes talking about myself, but about the students I work with ADHD kids. And I notice that about the age of 8 is when they stop risking. They stop raising their hand, they stop participating. And that's something that I do, is I encourage them to be comfortable with failure. And you got to realize with ADHD, it's kind of, I've heard this said by Dr. Hollowell, that they're a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes. And it's the poor brakes that show the impulsivity, the poor behavior, all of that. Well, that can composite, you have a decade plus on them. By the time they're teens, they're not raising their hand. I noticed the girls get into perfect girl syndrome. So they want to be perfect, and why bother? I'm not going to volunteer because I'll look the fool. So if it's not perfect, then they're frozen into not risking. With the boys, they're more fall down, get up, get muddy, scrape your knee, but you keep doing it. However, when you have ADHD and we operate on ready, aim, fire, they operate on fire, aim, ready. And you have that your whole life. Okay, and now you're 15. They're like Fort Knox, they close down. They're not going to be risk takers. So what I do is, after all the things I've been through, and I've shared with them, I said, I've sat in the throne of failure. I have known what it's like to risk and not do well, but keep at it. I said, with failure comes character, perseverance, courage, and consistency. And that's something that I share with them, and to be comfortable with that, because you're going to get stronger through failure. And some of the things, I was a single parent, I'm a breast cancer survivor. So I have my personal resume that's built in those components. So when sharing with kids, about raising that hand, even if it's wrong. To get up there and don't be the clown. You don't want to sit there. That goal is not to fail. The goal is to risk. Okay, that wasn't the right answer. What can I learn from it? And being comfortable with that. So that's something that has really been a call and passion for me to help them. And I have this wonderful calendar in my little office area by Zig Ziglar. He said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And that's something that I think is really important that teens need, and it's often forgotten. And another thing, for every negative comment, you need 10 to replace compliments. Well, we think about things in our life. We've gotten better coping skills as we've gotten older, and we have decades of that, like how to navigate through tough times. Whereas kids are still learning, but they do this black or white thinking, yes or no. No, I can't do it. Yes, I can. But the yeses are smaller. So encouragement is a big component of what I do, and just sharing through the adversity is okay. It actually will build your character. And that's something that's really passionate for me. And I've learned a lot in my life, and I share that with them, that yes, they're going to be tough times, but you can get through, and let's just take it small. You know, it's either the A+ or the F. And it's like, okay, are we okay with a C+? That's good too. It's better than a D. So teaching, building in the resilience, giving the true compliments and seeing their unique qualities as gifts and not a deficit, right? Attention deficit, but seeing them that they are unique. And a lot of CEOs in this country around the world have ADD. So that's my wisdom for today and what I wanted to share about risk. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. That is amazing. I was just thinking, it doesn't even have to be students or people with difficulties in learning. I mean, if I had a person like you around when I was being brought up, it would have made a whole difference to my psyche and learning. That's really, really good. Thank you for sharing, Chris.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Let's move over to another teacher, a lecturer. We have Tracy Keeley, my long friend for over 30 years. We go back 30 years ago now. Tracy is a lecturer in media studies at Stroud College. Discovering teaching at her mid-20s, it is still a joy and privilege for Tracy to watch the development of young people, both personally and academically. And although working in education is tough mentally, emotionally, and physically, it is a world full of opportunity to stretch, learn, and grow. Tracy says, teaching has made me a better person and gives my life meaning. Let's welcome Tracy to the stage.
Hello, everyone. And thank you very much for the introduction, Gula, and for inviting me to be part of this lovely group. I already feel inspired from listening to Sheila and Chris. So I'm just going to share you my personal story, which really was the desire to try and be safe initially, which is the opposite of risk-taking. I grew up in a dysfunctional home. My mother had a serious mental illness, which meant that she went into hospital when I was 15 years old and she never came home again. My father couldn't cope, and he couldn't cope with teenagers around him. So we didn't get the emotional support we needed from him either. And it just left me feeling very insecure, unstable, unrooted, and I sought safety. And the way I kind of adapted to my kind of insecurity was hiding my feelings, being nice, having not really stretching out and having no ambition, thinking I couldn't do things, just keeping myself into a tight little box. And I was deeply insecure at this time and lacking self-esteem. This is before I knew you, Gula. all this time. I mean, I did have fun, I won't lie. But when I was in my early 20s, a girlfriend asked me if I wanted to travel around the world with her. And I just got grabbed by the excitement of it. At that time, 1986, not many people traveled independently in that way. The gap year wasn't really the sort of thing. My father tried to put me off, you know, he was frightened and said, no, don't do that, don't do that. And he thought something bad would happen to me. But I took the risk. I gave up my job. I gave up a great flat and a good social life. And then off we went. We got there, Heathrow Airport, for the flight to Delhi. Everybody in the departure lounge was Asian. We were the only white people there. And we were pulled over by the security staff saying, why are you going to India? And we just said, well, you know, we just want to see the culture. We want to have an adventure. And it just looked at us as if we were mad. So we arrived in Delhi with nowhere to stay. And we just kind of found our way around, staying in rough hostels and being around all the poverty. But still, we learned a lot from that experience. It was a real eye-opener. We'd never been anywhere like that before. And eventually we travel around and we end up in Perth in Australia. And by then I'd met quite a lot of women who were traveling on their own. And I started to get curious. And also I started having some bad luck. I couldn't find any work, whereas my friend found work and everything was going well for her. And I said, do you mind if I go off on my own? And she said, not at all. So I went off on my own, and that was a huge risk, as you can imagine, girl traveling on her own, strange country. But I did it, and I got a huge amount of confidence from doing that. Yeah, and I actually sort of started to really get a sense of who I was and loving life. So I came home and I thought, well, I don't really just want to keep traveling. I'm going to, you know, look into teaching. So I managed to find myself a teaching job without having a degree, with no teaching experience and no teaching qualifications. Don't know how I did it, but I was taken on. And I walked into that classroom and I saw 20 faces looking at me expectantly. And my stomach just heaved over. And I just put a smile on my face and I thought, it's fight or it's flight. And I didn't have anything else to go for, so I just had to fake it. So that's how my teaching career sort of started, basically, and I'm still teaching 35 years later. Yeah. But then after a while, you know, I got into a bit of a safe existence. The teaching I got sort of sorted, and life just became quite flat. And in my sort of mid-20s, I sort of fell into a depression. I started crying for a week and I couldn't stop, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And one of my colleagues said to me, why don't you try Insight Seminars? It's a personal development program that might help. So I did that. And I actually did get experience of myself as somebody of worth, which for me was a big thing. Somebody of value has something to sort of offer in life. And it really was an eye-opener, and it was a real big stretch doing that. I mean, the things they make you do was quite incredible, which Gula knows, because that's how I know Gula, because she's been through the same thing. So yeah, and now fast forward 35 years, 60th birthday is approaching. Lockdown is happening. Reevaluating the life. Everything is good. You know, I have a lovely home. I have a great job, great friends, fantastic son, you know, enjoy my life. But my love life, you know, not really happening. And I thought, I looked all the way back to my childhood and that insecure girl, the girl who was unsupported, the girl who felt so alone. And I thought, this is the root of it. There's something here that I haven't recovered from. You know, I haven't gotten over the loss of my mum. You know, I haven't grieved because I couldn't grieve. And there was a lot of unexpressed emotion there. So I started to search. And I found this course called Hoffman Process, and it's a week's residential. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. It's a lot of money, but I need to just get past this and just see what's there. So you apply, you have an hour's interview. And in this interview, I talked about my childhood for a whole hour. And I've never done that. I've never spoken about exactly what happened to one person who just listened for an hour. At the end of the hour, the guy said, I think you'll be suitable for this. I think this will be great for you. And he said, you're going to now have to do the pre-course work, which was about 9 hours worth of work. Yes. And it was the most searching work I've ever done. So the questions in there, I'll just see whether they were here. Yeah, Hoffman was called in the publicity materials the world's toughest therapy retreat. And the kind of questions I had to answer were, what do you consider to be the most traumatic event in your life? And how do you express emotions in your life? Are there any emotions that you're scared to express? I also had a list of about 100 different qualities, and I had to say which qualities were mine. So being judgmental, yeah. Insecure, yeah. Needy, yeah. All of these things. And then you had to trace back, did you learn that from your mother or your father? So I knew that when I did this 9 hours worth of homework, that this was going to be hardcore, heavy duty work. And I'd done so much work before I started. So it felt very risky to join this course. So I arrived at this beautiful retreat in the Sussex countryside, and I met the 20 other participants who were always also willing to confront their demons. And over the week, I identified the protective cage of behaviours I've built around myself in an attempt to keep myself safe. I expressed a lot of emotions I didn't know I had, one of which was anger. I didn't know how angry I was at losing my mum. That was really quite an eye-opener. But I also forgave not just my parents, but me and how I was, because I wasn't great at that time. And now I'm just learning how to integrate all of that, mind, body, spirit, emotions, the whole thing. So that was a risk. And to summarize, my insecure childhood made me crave safety, but trying to be safe by avoiding risk and change only led to me feeling really dead inside and depressed. Every risk I've taken has paid dividends in increased confidence, vitality, and life satisfaction. I believe that avoiding growth leads to decline, which is not what I want to do at the age of 60. I'm not ready for that. So the next risk I'm taking, 2 months after my 60th birthday, is I'm going to Costa Rica on my own. And that's it. I'm finished. Thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you very much for sharing, Tracy. And yeah, I can so resonate with you. And I don't know, I think what I'm sharing might sort of be very similar, although it's told in a different way. Thank you so much, and good luck with Costa Rica. Be safe. Okay, so my next guest is Nikki Quinn. No, Diana Daniels. How can I? I've got Diana here. Diana Daniels, let me introduce you to her bio. Diana is a spiritual director and course creator who is passionate about empowering women to uplift their soul, build healthy self-esteem, and deepen self-discovery by combining the proven practice of affirmations and journaling. Diane splits her online time between her website at dianemdaniels.com and LinkedIn, and welcomes connections, comments, and questions about her work. Let's welcome Diane on stage.
Thank you, ladies, very much. Thank you, Gula, for inviting me to this phenomenal group of women. I'm very glad to be here. We're not taught to take risks by prevailing wisdom in society, ladies. Happily, I was taught differently. I was raised by a midlife mama who didn't have me until she was in her 40s. Imagine my surprise when I bragged on her during a parent-teacher conference when I was in high school. I told my friend she was 40 years old. That sounded right, and she looked about that age. Imagine my surprise and how hard my jaw hit the floor when we got home and she said to me, "Child, I was 40 when I had you." Okay, talk about taking a risk. We often have examples of risk takers in our lives who don't blow their own horns or sing their own praises. And it's high time that we, ladies, sexy at 60, decide to take matters into our own hands and create our own songs of praise for ourselves. The tasks and goals that I'm taking on now would have scared the young woman I used to be out of her skin. That's one of the joys of being sexy at 60. You know yourself better. You've been through some things and you've had a chance to notice and develop your strengths. You have a clear vision of what you're willing to accept, what you'll put up with, and what you'll absolutely positively challenge. One of the tenets of my faith is a belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. That includes us, ladies, especially the sexy at 60 crew. Some elements of the fashion industry would have us believe we're washed up, no longer beautiful or vibrant once we reach a certain age. I call that a narrow-minded point of view. That means they're going to miss out on all the experience, joyfulness, and audaciousness that we hold. One of the lovely side benefits of being a mature woman is that we've had a chance to do some analysis. What works for us, what doesn't work for us. It's more obvious when you're sexy at 60. No longer are we automatically accepting of society's definitions for who we are, and we don't accept the limits they'd like to place on us. Part of the problem is that risk is defined as exposing someone or something that is valued to danger, harm, or loss. Now, if you're an ordinary person and that doesn't make you want to avoid risk, I don't blame you, but it's time to change the narrative. Calculated risk, where you analyze the pros and cons, determine your margin of safety, check in with your strengths and your capabilities, and then make a decision. That's the way to go. Trust your knowledge, trust your spirit, trust your heart. You've been through some things and you've learned from every experience that you've had. Now, some of that learning will be in the shape of what not to do or what not to repeat. Now, that's valuable information. When your heart and your spirit are giving you warning signals, listen to them. You've lived a little and you have the background and the experience to know when something is not right for you. No one else can know that for you. Trust yourself. When I was younger, I wanted to be like my mother. She was a licensed practical nurse for more than 30 years. We talked all the time about her job and her duties and the fact that her profession was taking care of people, being there for them at the happiest and sometimes the most difficult moments of their lives. After we had a real and true conversation about her experiences, I had a chance to talk to some of her coworkers. I knew after those conversations, nursing was not for me. I was not able to keep professional distance necessary to do the job well. I would not have been able to work, for instance, in the pediatric ward. Children who are sick or in pain stab directly at my heart, and I'd spend more time crying with them or crying over them than being able to do my job and sometimes perform duties that might not be their favorites. As you have different experiences and you learn more about yourself, I want to encourage you to write down your impressions and your feelings about who you are, what you've learned, and what moves you forward. Journaling is one way, happens to be my favorite way, to learn more about myself and reinforce my learning. I've kept a diary since I was 9 years old, and while it's now called journaling, the concept is the same. If you don't currently have a journaling practice and would like to learn more about it, visit my website at dianemdaniels.com, and on the front page, you can sign up for my 5 simple steps to start your journaling practice. It's a no obligation, free PDF that will give you a set of instructions for creating a journal jar and a set of bonus journaling prompts to help you get started. Thank you for your time and attention, ladies. Guler, this has been wonderful. I've so much enjoyed hearing everyone's stories, and thank you for including me in this phenomenal Sexy at 60 group of ladies. Back over to you, Guler.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And how beautifully you inspired us with keep mentioning Sexy at 60. We forget, isn't it? It's all about Sexy at 60. Let's be proud. And I can't wait for one of my birthdays tomorrow, but the big one is on the 1st of July. So story for another day. Let's go on and move on to Nikki now. Nikki Quinn. And while I read Nikki's bio, Nikki has worked in market insights and analytics well before her 18th birthday. Nikki has helped marketing and sales directors and their teams understand what drives their brand's performance, but in the last decade has begun to understand more clearly what drives individuals' performance. Nikki is passionate in helping women, particularly those who hit a roadblock mid-career, get their gravitas on by coaching leaders to become more inspirational and build their executive presence. Welcome, Nikki, to stage.
Thank you so much, Gula. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Wow, what inspirational stories. I've taken risks from the minute I finished my school career. My parents are both BSc graduates. My dad was a metallurgist and my mom was a pharmacist. I was the bright one of my siblings, and they wanted me to be a BSc graduate too. But I was having none of it. The first of my 3 experiences of taking personal risk was after I had found my first job. At 17 years old, I'd finished 12 years of school and I was going to work at a bank. Well, if she can't be a BSc graduate, they said, at least she's going for a respectable career in a bank. That was way, way back at the end of the 1970s. But alas, banking was not for me. I hated it. And I knew that I hated it from the first day that I walked into the office. Just a few months later, I went home to my parents and I said, I have left my job. I have found a new job. Where? They asked. I said, it's at a company called Nielsen. They said, never heard of it. And many have never heard of Nielsen unless you're in the media or the marketing industry. It was the start of what turned out to be an exceptionally long career and is still a career in delivering market insights to companies. But my parents were actually quite impressed. I stayed at Nielsen for many, many years, although I had a couple of breaks and traveled overseas for a while. I went to Europe for a year, came back, got my job at Nielsen back. went to work at a motor manufacturer, didn't like that, got my job at Nielsen back. And I finally left somewhat later, which I'll talk about just now. But it was a big risk that I took leaving a bank, and my parents were devastated that that's what I was going to do. But it really worked out well for me. There were girls who had done BSCs 10 years later, and I was earning way more money than them. And I was satisfied. I was enjoying the work that I did. But it was a risk in the first place. I managed, of course, on that journey to meet a man, get married. I didn't have any children, though. But after being married for 20 years, I wasn't happy. And I decided that I was going to leave him. Everybody said I was absolutely crazy. He's such a nice guy. Everybody likes him. I said, you don't have to live with him. You don't see how much money he spends. You don't see the amount of debt we're in. And I finally, after much thought, I decided that the right thing to do was leave. I had huge debt at the time. We both did. But I worked on it, and it was a huge risk leaving him to be on my own, because I actually did quite like him. In fact, I'd go as far as to say I loved him. But the next 3 years I spent getting rid of, in my money, 100,000 rands worth of debt. It might as well be $100,000 or 100,000 pounds, but I wouldn't have had it if I wasn't married to an irresponsible man. And at the time I thought it was a risk, but it ended up giving me the most incredible financial freedom and personal growth that I had come across. The last thing I did that was really scary and a huge risk, as I mentioned, I've been working at Nielsen for a very long time. And in the year 2019, just before a kind of pandemic hit us, I decided I'd had enough. And I decided to take a sabbatical. I resigned from my job. And 6 months later, COVID hit. I spent more than the 6 months having a sabbatical. But at the beginning of 2021, when finally my funds were getting just a little bit lower than I had hoped for, a company approached me and asked me if I would join them. So I went straight back into corporate with very welcome hands. It had been an incredible risk deciding to leave a job in corporate, but I wasn't happy. And every time I took risks, it was because I wasn't happy. Leaving the bank in the first place, leaving a man who was supposedly a good man, leaving Nielsen after 38 years of ongoing service seemed crazy. But in the end, every single one of those decisions have granted me incredible personal growth. And I'd love to be able to share the whole story with all of you. But I can guarantee that now, on the 15th of June, I am going to be completely fulfilled, and I'm going to be very sexy at 60. Thank you, Gula, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Nikki. That was an amazing story. Very, very good. And again, it just clearly shows there's so many parts we all resonate with. I'm just looking at the husband. It's like, oh my God, I remember that one. Thank you, Nikki. So we'll go to my part now. So Nikki was going to introduce me, but we changed plans. I'll introduce myself. Don't worry. It's fine. Okay, I thought I'll start off with a question. To gain personal growth, one must take risks. True or false? At a very early age, I had to learn to stand on my own 2 feet because sincere love and further educational support was not very well provided by my parents. Alas, after feeling lonely and not heard as a teenager, I stepped out of the darkness and started reading self-development books. This quote from Jung, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become," still echoes in my head today. I translated the quote to mean, firstly, to stop feeling sorry for myself. However, to succeed in this, I recall having to push away every emotional feeling I felt by repeating my affirmation, "My time will come." Secondly, the quote drove me into a direction to stop counting on others to help me and to start making things happen by myself. Although the quote is very powerful and positive, it also had a negative effect on me, for it had made me too hard and emotionless as a person. It wasn't until I participated in insight seminars, as Tracy mentioned earlier, during the 90s, and Toastmasters in the last six years that helped me to speak up and tell others how I feel. And I'm still learning. But also learning to love, care, and trust others again. And more recently, one of my proudest moments is that my beautiful daughters helped and showed me how to cry again. True or false? To gain personal growth, one must take risks. Is it worth it? Absolutely. It is this experience early on in my life that started shaping who I am today. But it is today that I take calculated risks for myself and the people I love, to research and analyze the risk first, and by asking others for their help and opinion before I rush into it. In 2020, I took the risk to invest in myself and moved to North Yorkshire in England. I saw this risk as an opportunity to start my own business. And why not? I'd calculated the risk. I feel that for so many women, including myself, we're taught by societal norms that investing in ourselves was selfish. So we spend so much of our energy only ever investing in others while passively hoping to no avail that someone will notice our efforts and return the investment. I am now beginning to understand that what I invest in myself, the risk I take today to become a better version of me, is what allows me to show up for others and to invest in support, lead, and love them in so many more ways than I ever could have done before. It's great to reflect back on the steps we took, large and small. So often we are looking forward that we forget just how far we have come. To gain personal growth, one must take risks. True or false? While I leave you with that thought, I like to thank my amazing Sexy at 60 guests for sharing their stories. Sheila, Chris, Tracy, Diane, and Nikki. It has been a magical hour. And for you listening and watching, I am hoping you will join us again next week to learn more about who we are and to be inspired by the diversity of our stories shared. Next week's topic is overcoming challenges. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And bye for now.